Hi, this is the Cat's Library. I'll be your librarian today. It's been a while since I did one of these. I just did a big project with my Smogist videos and kept getting other big ideas for things. So I'm going to make a simpler video in order to keep momentum while not burning myself out too much. Engage Speedpaint! I chose to draw a purple sea urchin today. These videos are all alphabetical, and for you this seemed like it was the best option for now. Sea urchins don't really have that much lore, and they don't have too much research. And by not too much research, I mean that the Wikipedia is shorter than some other animals in this series, but I can cross-reference with some other shortish articles in order to make a decent length presentation. They live along the coast of the Pacific Ocean, including Canada, the American Northwest, and the American California coast, and also Mexico. They tend to specifically live in more shallow water and tidal zones. They can live solitary or as part of a larger group. Sea urchins eat kelp and algae, which they let float between their spines, and then they grab onto them with their suction feet. They also scrape algae off of rocks with their mouth, which is called the Aristotle's lantern, because Aristotle allegedly said it looked like a horned lantern since both had 5 overlapping pieces. Starfish and some other animals also have this sort of mouth. Using their Aristotle's lantern and spines, they can carve recesses in rocks. At low tide, their suction feet help them move around and also grab shells, rocks, and other stuff to protect themselves from predators and the sun. They are a common prey to sea otters. They are also often exported to Japan for use in sushi. Native Americans in the California region traditionally ate the eggs of purple sea urchins, which are yellow. That should be about it for the factual section of the program. Now on to explaining the drawing. When it came to the drawing, I decided to go more of a painterly route this time. I didn't do any traditional sketches at this time, just color sketches. The rocks looked pretty good the whole way through. The urchin varies in how it turned out. For pretty much the whole drawing, I started with that blending paintbrush I showed in the Smogist finale, and then refined it with a solid brush, and then sometimes added a bit of shading with a low opacity, non-automatic blending brush. Though for the rocks I used a splatter brush for texture, which I may or may not have blended out with a Gaussian blur, depending at what point of the process I was at. That was possibly confusing. Here is a diagram. Okay, wrong diagram. Here's a better one. Anyway, I started with this ugly thing. It started out with a red blob with some purple lines, with the blend tool in the general direction of the spines because I wanted to play around with portraying elements in focus and out of focus. Then I added some hard brush spikes on a different layer, locked the layer, and then shaded them with a blending brush. Then I added some weird fleshy looking things because I wasn't looking very closely at the reference. Then I broke the reference up into fourths and had a more careful second pass where I paid attention to the direction of the spines and the overall shapes of everything. Then I attempted to shade everything, but I still wasn't satisfied. Finally, I split the reference into 9 pieces, technically, and then I systematically went through each section. This one rock with all of the algae was especially fun to do. I used a pencil brush through most of it and blocked in the colors. Having a color sketch really worked for this drawing. I told myself I was going to stop about here, but figured since the middle was the focus point, I needed to spend a bit more time on it, since it was the last of the 9 sections I completed and I was rushing it because it was starting to get late. So I spent an additional half an hour on it the next day. I didn't do the whole thing on the same day, but the 9th section final draft was all on one day. I have forced myself to stop, even though it doesn't exactly look like the reference, at least up close. If you zoom out, then it looks pretty similar. I didn't know what else I can do. The end product looks a lot like a spiky crystal from a movie. I don't remember what movie I'm thinking of. I think it was a sci-fi. Don't know. Let's get on with the story section. The stories about sea urchins that I found are pretty short, but there is one that is tangentially related that I can tell you. First, for some factoids. In England, fossilized sea urchins used to be called fairy loaves because they were good luck and potentially made sure that people who had them in their houses never ran out of bread. The other story is that they prevented against lightning strike or predicted rain, since damp weather caused condensation to form on them. Now, something you may or may not be wondering is about why street urchins and sea urchins have the same name, and absolutely nothing in common. So sea urchin comes from a similar base word to hedgehog, which language that base word came from. I saw multiple conflicting sources for. It looks like it's part of the pipeline from Latin to French to Middle English to Modern English, from the same word as hedgehog. What does that have to do with street urchins? In English folklore, there were certain fairies that would regularly disguise themselves as hedgehogs. As the base words split apart, urchin got the sea creature, and the mischievous fairies and hedgehog got nothing but the Latin name. Because linguistic divorce court is absolutely brutal. Echidnas are also, coincidentally, very similar to the original base name, but I don't really want to get into the etymology of that today. So urchin meant mischievous fairy and then slowly shifted to mean mischievous children. I wanted this video to be on the shorter side after all the 20-minute ones that I just finished up with, and so I'm not going to elaborate on this final story too much. In short, in Greek mythology, there was a titan or giant or whatever who the planet Uranus was named after, and also his son Kronos or Saturn, depending on whether we're using the Greek version or the Roman version, who the planet Saturn was named after. Common in Greek mythology is the concept of the son who supplants his father, but as a lot of these characters are immortal, a lot of these are strange and violent ways of getting supplanted. Uranus was banished to become the physical form of the sky, and let's say his blood fell into the ocean. Around the blood formed sea foam, and out of the sea foam came Aphrodite or Venus. Finally, back on topic, around Aphrodite, a bunch of sea urchins welcomed her arrival on land. The preceding story is for entertainment purposes only and not conducive to recommended family dynamics, child rearing, or religious advice. Okay, done. Crazy things happening in current events right now. Very crazy things. Okay, see you when I see you. Bye.